Welcome to From Potential to Powerhouse, Success Secrets from Female Leaders, where female trailblazers share their journeys and the aha moments that made all the difference. With your host, serial entrepreneur and trailblazer herself, Tracy Holland.
Hey, welcome to From Potential to Powerhouse podcast. I'm your host, Tracy Holland. Her name is Sharon Rechter. She is the founder and president and head of business development for First Media. And I'm going to just lay out some statistics because the thing about Sharon is that she's touching, speaking to, and communicating with women all over the United States every single day. First Media has 170 million followers. It has videos that it plays of over 1.5 billion views. And she is speaking to 71% of US women through both of her television channels, which ship on most, if not every cable box to every cable subscriber in the United States. The two cable channels are BabyFirst and So Yummy. But she also, if you would want to go online and take a look on her IG, she owns the platform So Yummy on IG. She owns Blossom. She owns Blusher. And one of the things that I find so unique about her media is that she does very short clips that are DIY solve problems for the common household, whether it's beauty problems or quick fixes or how to make the most amazing crock pot cupcakes on the planet. It's an innovative, solution-based, do-it-yourself platform. And by the way, you run it with your husband, and his title is what?
He is my co-partner, my co-founder, and my CEO.
And at home, what's his title?
I'm on a recorded line, so I am going to say co-founder and CEO. What's fun to say is you mentioned how we at First Media and I come up with creative solutions. So I can't make an omelet. That's the truth. I can't do it-yourself projects to save my life. And if you look at me, you can see my image here. I have no makeup on. My hair's not perfect. When we'll meet, you'll see I'm wearing flats and jeans. My imperfection glows. And the consumer insight that led us to do what we're doing was that I'm not Martha Stewart, but I really want Martha Stewart results. I want, after I have 4 kids and I took them to school and I worked all day, I want to invite Tracy Holland for dinner, serve her something, and she would think I've thought of her all day. And that's what we do at First Media. We create content that gives women, mostly women, but not only women like me, the ability to have Martha Stewart results without the Martha Stewart efforts. And we create content that saves women time, saves them money, and always makes them the hero, makes their life easier. And we're taking it to the next step these days by making it shoppable. Not only giving you ideas, but making it really easy for you to get what you need to get in order to make your life even more fun, inspiring, and easy. So can't wait to cook for you, Tracy.
And you do surprise and delight, because I think one of the most unique, so one of the videos I watched of yours was, I think, 30 different ways to use your crock pot. And literally from cheese dip to cupcakes to making 400 hot dogs at once. Who in the organization comes up with the big ideas for the creative solutions for the household? Are you hearing that from your digital platforms, from the women who are asking questions and saying, how do you solve for this, or what's the process?
So our team includes 200 people who are way more creative and smarter than me. And we look for the most interesting and insightful solutions. At the end of the day, we're a media company and an inspiration company. So we're not a cooking website. We're an inspirational, but also it's a media company. So we look for the most innovative ways to give you more out of what you have. So you have a crock pot, that's great. Well, we'll show you how you can make an entire brunch with that crock pot. This video that you mentioned did 80 million views organically, meaning no paid media behind it. But then we actually went and later recommended you a crock pot that could actually do all this. So made it easy for women to also go full circle and shop for a great crock pot. And that's what we aim to do. Create content that both entertains you, gives you really cool hacks and solutions, but also for our partners, helps us sell products.
And you've built an empire. You have an incredible who's who on your board, which has a lot to say about who you are and who your husband is in terms of the type of leaders you are and founders and visionaries. One of my favorite stories that you and I have talked about is what it was like with you growing up as a female in your household, and especially the relationship that you had with your dad. So I'm imagining if you could describe your little Sharon as a 7-year-old girl, what would you describe her as? What kind of personality?
You mentioned my dad, so I will say that one of the things I grew up with from both my parents, but especially from my dad, and which I hope to inspire in my kids because I think it creates children that really believe in themselves, is I'll actually recital a conversation I had with my dad when I was 7. My dad, who was a CEO of a fairly successful company, said, "Sharon, I need to sit you down and we need to have a conversation. I need your advice." He said, "I'm thinking of leaving the company I'm the CEO of and starting my own business." I was 7. And I looked at him and I said, "What are we going to eat? Are we going to starve?" And he didn't laugh. He didn't laugh. He looked at me and he said, "This was a really good question." And he weighed with me that he saved money, and this is why he believes his business is going to be successful. And then he said to me, "But I'm not going to make this decision to leave unless I have your support because it's a family decision." And I felt so empowered. And I said, "Of course we're going to do it. And whatever you need me to do in order for us to be successful, I'm in." And that was maybe the second, it wasn't the first, but it was the second stepping stone of me feeling empowered as a child, that my opinion mattered, that someone like my dad, who you admire when you're 7, and I still do, really values what you're thinking and gives you the feeling that you're part of a team. And you take that feeling that you're part of a team and that your opinion matters later to your adult life and also to your parenting life. So to me, that was a really important moment. I actually was recently asked to do a presentation about business lessons. And they said, "Don't sell your company." I said, "Okay, well, I don't have a deck ready." And I pulled out a deck that I did for my dad's 60th birthday, which was 10 lessons I've learned from my dad. And I presented it in a business surrounding. I changed the meaning of the lessons from personal to business. And I was shocked to see how much I have learned from him throughout the years on outlook, on believing in yourself as a woman, and as an entrepreneur, being positive, not giving up. And it was one of my most successful presentations. I now do it very often because I think there's so much that you can teach a child to help build especially a woman entrepreneur. And I'll give you one that's maybe controversial and funny, but I had a really tough negotiation once and I didn't know what to do. And it was really stuck. And I called my dad and I said, what do I do if I'm stuck? I don't know what to do. And he said, "If all else fails, use your feminine power." And I said, "Dad, what are you doing? I mean, I'm your daughter. What do you mean use your feminine power?" And he said, "I mean cry. If you start crying in a room full of men, you will totally shift the energy. They won't know what to do, and your negotiation will start from a very different place." I didn't cry that day, but I realized that as a woman, I don't have less power. I have different powers. I have my own toolkit, which is everything I am, from the good and the bad, but this is my toolkit as a woman. And if I look at everything I have, which is me, but as a woman, not as a disadvantage, but rather how can I play it for my advantage, I can win. I can beat guys at their own game because none of them can cry. And that was a really powerful lesson for me, to always look at what are the things that I can do as a woman that men can't do to beat even the relationship games that some complain about. Like some say that, many deals are done at the golf course. Well, I don't play golf, but I'm a really good marriage consultant. And I can find different ways to bond with people. So I just think as women, our goal is to embrace our differences, embrace our strength, even the ones that are pinned on us by society, and win. Long answer for a short question.
No, it's so true. And the thing I mean, we've shared so many stories together. In your 20s, I know you had you went to law school, you had traditional jobs, JOBs, right? Where you reported to someone and had responsibilities.
It never worked for me.
I was going to say, how is Sharon Rechter as an employee?
It depends on the boss, because I was one of those employees who always behaved like I owned the business. I tried to look at the business as if I owned it. What would I do for it? And it didn't work for everybody. Because I was extremely opinionated, annoyingly opinionated, I probably would say, looking in retrospective. And I wasn't willing to bow to ideas or orders that I found inefficient and stupid. I think I've matured since, and I understand now that I don't understand anything, and that maybe there was a lot of logic to things the way they were done, but I couldn't see that at that time. But being who I am, my only way to move forward was to do our own thing and build things the way we wanted to build them.
And how old were you at that point that you decided to do it on your own?
So I started my first entrepreneurial gigs at 6th grade, but my first media was started when I was 27. I asked for $1,000 raise. They said no. I ran a small TV network, $1,000 a month raise. They said no. And being young and vain, not knowing what I don't know, Guy and I thought, well, if I can't get that raise, I might as well start a network. That network had 50,000 subscribers. We now have 90 million, but still a network.
So you left your paying gig at that point that didn't pay you the $1,000, or did you stay on the paying gig and start this at night?
I left. Look, I thrive on calculated risk, and I enjoy risk. But I also, one of the ways I deal with uncertainty is I go back and ask myself, what's the worst possible scenario here? Mm-hmm. And my worst possible scenario was, in the event that all else fails, and I try out this company to build our own company, and I completely flop it, what is the worst possible outcome? And I thought about it and realized there were two. The first, all the people I consider my peers will think, Sharon's not as smart as we thought she was. And they'll look down at me, which would be hard, but I'm not that interesting. So they'll kind of get over it in a week or so and move on with their lives. So that's not a good enough reason not to do it. And the second thing that will happen is I will lose all my savings, and I will have to move back with my parents and get a job. Well, I like my parents, so it's not the end of the world. Once I write down to myself, what's the worst possible case, I look it in the eye and I think, if it happens, I can deal with it. I'm never afraid again. And I don't keep going back to it. So even when COVID started and, we didn't know what would happen, what I like to do is instead of running through my head all the million negative scenarios that can happen, I lay it down on a piece of paper. This is the worst that can happen. Do I have a plan for it? Can I deal with it? Once I do, I put it in the drawer. I never look back, and I go fight with 2 grenades in my hands and a stick light between my teeth.
You are so smart. I do exactly the same thing. I have a book that says, I'm going to write this down. This is my manifestation, make it happen, goal book, whatever you want to call it. And then I write down next door to it, what's the worst possible outcome? And it's actually not so bad. I mean, at the end of the day, we're both pretty hireable and marketable. Yeah. If we had to go get a job and bring home bacon.
You know what you and I probably learned in life, that the really bad stuff, it happens on a Tuesday at 4:00 in the afternoon. There's nothing you could do to plan for the really bad stuff. Mm-hmm. So there's no point in worrying about it. So you just plan for what you can, and the really good stuff and the really bad stuff, it happens on a Tuesday at 4:00. So I think living your life, acknowledging fear, acknowledging your everything that stops you, looking at it in the eye and saying, I see you. I like to think of it. You remember the movie Beautiful Mind? When he realizes that he has imaginary friends?
Yeah.
So I look at those imaginary friends, and they're like my doubts, my fears, my everything. And I see them. He didn't stop seeing them. I see them. I say hi to them. But then I continue with my life, and
Right.
kind of that's my strategy on that.
So when you started First Media with Guy, do you think it gave you more confidence to start with him? And then at that time, as a couple, did you define boundaries up front about what it would mean to work together and how you would interface with one another? Or was it just kind of, let's do this and jump in and see how this shakes out?
I would say what Guy and I joke that is the way we are able to work together right now is that each of us thinks he or she is right 99% of the time. But because we don't know when is that 1% that we're wrong, we're respectful to each other. And that really helps us. So our philosophy is there's only one decision maker on every topic. It's either him or me. We consult with each other, but we will never do something if the other completely objects. Because after everything is said and done, our relationship and our family will always be more important than the business. So no one decision is that crucial that it's worth breaking our bond. When we started, and we were two people in a one-bedroom apartment in New York with two laptops pressing send, receive, hoping to get an email. Those days, all day send, receive. Then on those days, our boundaries were not so clear. Now that we're 200 people and we have a lot more to do, then it's fairly clear cut. And I can actually spend days not even seeing him. Even during COVID when we're working from the same house. So because we're both so busy in what we're doing, and the way we really divide it is he runs the ship and I constantly look for growth. And it plays on both our strengths.
I would agree. That's incredible. So at what point did you need to raise capital? Were you able to self-fund the business initially, or did you have a savings, or how did you jump into this new area?
When you're launching, our first business was a cable network.
Yep.
And in the business of a cable network, you're in a unique situation where nobody, and especially when you have no experience, nobody wants to give you money until you have a distribution deal with a cable provider like Dish, Direct, Comcast, Time Warner. But the minute Comcast, Time Warner, Dish, or Direct do a deal with you, they want the channel up in the air. So what do you do? And then you need the money for creating content. So Guy and I were able to raise $500,000 until we got a distribution deal, with a commitment from our investors to immediately insert more funds once there's a distribution deal. And we had to come up with creative models on how to best stretch that money. For example, we did something that I don't think was done back then. We bought options on programs. So we paid 5% on what the show would cost with the right to immediately exercise the option once we got the deal. We spent little money on development of shows so they would be almost ready to shoot, but didn't shoot them until we got the deal. And we were able to launch a 24/7 cable network, which is about 400 hours of programming in 3 months from the time we got the deal. But for what we're doing on social media, which is today the biggest part of our business, we raised no money. We did it solely based on the profits of the cable network.
That's blind. Do you hindsight and ever say, okay, that was crazy and I pulled it off? I mean, it's pretty amazing what you've built. I mean, you are literally, I think listeners need to understand, literally you are in every single household, to the extent that 71% of women are impacted by your programming or have touched your So Yummy video or come across your blusher video or some sort of digital content that your company has created.
And it still makes my day every time someone says, oh, I know your videos, I watch them. Even though you're right, we are in 71% of US women, we reach them every single month through our content. Every time somebody tells me, I remember your videos, it honestly makes my day. So we're grateful. Look, there's a lot of luck that played into what we're doing. It wasn't just us. We have an amazing team. We have amazing investors who were always there for us to open doors and provide advice. So at the end of the day, we did some good stuff, but we got a lot of both help and luck.
So you've owned the business now how many years? 15?
Oh, wow. Yes. So we've owned the cable networks 15 years. Yeah, do you know that somebody just posted BabyFirst nostalgia, hashtag nostalgia, which is horrible, in the sense that there's a teenager out there that posts BabyFirst nostalgia. But again, our business, if I had to define what my best skill is, I'm not a content person, I'm not a biz dev person. I'm really good at adjusting to changing circumstances. And we've adjusted. Like, if you think about it, we launched a cable network 15 years ago, but networks are not what they used to be. Mm-hmm. And we built a business that is significantly bigger than our cable business on social media. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, and in 2008, Facebook changed the algorithm, and many of our friends, unfortunately, had to shut their doors. Mm-hmm. And then now COVID came, and many of our friends, unfortunately, had to shut their doors. And because Guy and I were very disciplined, we've always been disciplined. We've always looked at being cash flow positive as a priority. And because we were really good at adjusting, we triumphed those. I mean, COVID year for us was a growth year, but it required a lot of adjusting. To give an example, we built 20 production studios in people's homes during COVID.
So you could get content, fresh content, and had the people who were developing the content do that locally in their own home?
Yeah. Yeah, so we didn't slow down. So we ended 2020 with a 35% growth over 19. It was our worst quarter ever. So it was about adjusting, realizing, the world is changing, we got to change. But yes, COVID is hurting a lot of our business. For example, our TV revenue went down, but so many other companies are now going direct to consumer because people don't go to stores. Can we be there for them? Can we help leverage great content to help people buy? And by adjusting really fast and changing every piece of content to being able to also monetize, we were able to grow this year. So I think the most important skill, if I had to teach my kids only 2 skills in life, it would be always challenge the status quo and adjust to changing circumstances.
I agree 100%. So in terms of where you see your business growing and the platform expansiveness, and I mean, you're young, so you have a lot of working years left, my friend.
Thank you for that.
Do you see continuing to build this? Do you want to sell it? Do you have a vision of becoming the next Turner Broadcasting Network?
I really enjoy doing things in a way that they've never done before. And what I see us now being able to do is change how people are shopping, and create real meaningful shopping experiences personalized through content. So I really love what we're doing there. Also allowing companies that are not traditionally direct to consumer go and become direct to consumer. By building unique platforms that will connect them to retailers, for example. Because you're unlikely to buy one Pepsi bottle, right? Or one bottle of Coke and go check out. But if I wrap it to you in a nice recipe and send you to a retailer to get all of it, then you might. So I see that. I will say my other passion, I have 2 other passions that maybe they'll be my legacy, is healthcare and education. And one day, I think I will, if I can define a KPI for myself before I die, it's to make a difference, because I'm too old to become a doctor, maybe help transform education somewhat, because I think that's our biggest ability to equalize our world is through education.
Yeah, so all of this growth and success in business has also been alongside being a mother and raising 4 incredibly smart and independent young people, which is one of the things I love watching you is in your parenting role, because you really talk to your kids like they're adults. You speak to them like they're, independent kids, people with their own thoughts and their own empowered.
I think I tried to treat them with respect, and I tried to help them make good decisions by not giving them the answers, but helping them think through it. And it requires attention. I also, in the drawer next to the worst possible scenario, I have a secret parenting plan for each of my children. And I think in order to write a parenting plan for each of your children, you need to look at each of your children. You really need to spend time looking at who they are and where you can help them grow, and what kind of attention do they need from you as a mother, especially when you're a working mother and you have to balance your time, and it's more about quality parenting than just being there. And it also allows you to be a much more relaxed parent. I'll give you an example. If I'm taking 2 kids to what used to be Toys R Us, and one of them I want to teach negotiation skills, and the other I want to teach that the meaning of the word no is no and deal with it. And they both end up asking for a Barbie doll. No crying in the world will change the outcome, because I have decided in advance that this is a learning opportunity. So for the one who I want her to negotiate, I would say when she asked for it, I'd say, you already have 10. Explain to me, why do we need this one? Please articulate it and explain to me why you need it. And I will help her. But I've already made the decision I'm buying a Barbie doll. And to the other that I'm trying to teach the meaning of the word no, all the crying in the world won't matter, because there is a lesson here. And I think it allows me to be a calmer parent, and a more present parent, because it doesn't require that. Now, it doesn't always work. We did this thing where you are supposed to have 1 candy a day. And one of the kids said, can I have another? And I said, well, it's not my body, it's your body. You decide, you know what it does to your body, blah, blah, blah. And one of them just said, oh, Mom, come on, just be a normal mom and say no. So, it doesn't always work.
Normal mom.
But I try to put it on them, because at the end of the day, I'm not a police officer. I won't be there for them at every step of the way. And my goal is to make them strong, resilient people who are capable of making choices.
So as with young women who are seeking a path to become entrepreneurs and mothers, did you bring your children to work in their younger years when you were breastfeeding or they were really tiny? How did you manage baby and work and growth of a business?
So I want to answer this with 2 parts. One is I was once asked by one of my daughters when she was 5, how come other mothers don't work and always pick up from school and I don't? And my answer to her was, and the easy answer was, which I think a lot of people would say, is I work to pay the bills. I do work to pay the bills, but it's not the only reason, and it's definitely not the reason I work the way I do. And I said, I'm not going to answer now. Why don't we go for dinner and we'll talk about it? And we dressed up and we went to her favorite pizza place and we ordered food. And then I asked her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she said, I want to be an artist, president of the United States, and a farmer. And I said, well, switch those 2 in order, be a farmer, and you have a better chance of being a president and then be an artist. But I asked her why. And she said, because I want my life to matter. And I said, well, I also want my life to matter. And she said she was 6. So for her, BabyFirst seemed like, baby and stuff. And she said, well, how does what you do matter? And I said, well, we help children learn. And we had this whole conversation. And then I said, well, when you grow up, you should come work with me. And then she said, why do I need to wait? And I said, you know what? You don't. And I brought her to the office the next day, and she and I wrote a book about animals, Sea Life by Noah. And then I shutterflied it, went to her school, and I said, I'm going to read you a book by my favorite author. And a few days later, she was talking to the little one, and the little one asked her, and she asked the little one, what do you want to be? And the little one said, I want to be a mommy. And she said, well, you know what? You can be a mommy and something else too. And I was like, yes. So the idea was to demonstrate to her the value of what I do and install with her that she has those capabilities so that she'll understand why I do what I do. And therefore, in a way, she could be a partner. But talking about women's journey, I think it's really important that young women, and I mentor a lot of young women, do not choose a job, but choose a path. Mm-hmm. I think we all tend to pick, when we're out of college, the most lucrative job, the one that pays the highest, but it's not the one that will get us to where we want to be. Right. And when I was 20, my dad gave me a piece of advice that I thought was extremely chauvinistic. And now I think was super smart. He said just that. And he said, when you're older, you might want to take a step back and you need to get a job that you'll either be so good at that you could do it a lot less time, or that people will pay you so much money for it, even though you want to stay home alone with your kids. And I thought, why would I ever want to stay home?
Right.
Well, I do. I love my kids. I don't miss a single field trip. And nothing in the world matters to me more than spending quality time with my kids. And the only way for a woman, at least from my experience, to have it all is to control your time. And the
Bingo.
only way to control your time is to have a path. So there are certain jobs that you go for that might pay you a lot in the short run, but you're never going to control your time. And
So
to
true.
me, those are dead end for women. The way to have it all, not to choose, is to pick jobs that are a path to eventually owning your time. And to me, it's like, you know, the GMAT test that you take for business class?
Of course. That test haunted me.
So I want to think that like your first career choices are a little bit like the GMAT. You know, you get on the tree, and after you've done a few of them, it's really hard to go back.
Yes.
So you're either on the very successful path or the less successful path.
Yes.
So, you know, based on the first like 3 or 4 choices. So a career path is kind of like it. Not that you can't completely change after you've had kids, but it's a lot harder. So my recommendation, if you're 20 and you're going out to the world, just really think about what you want to be when you grow up before you pick that first job.
You know, the thing that strikes me about you, and the minute I met you, do you remember what the electricity between us?
It was love at first sight.
Is you have one of the most incredible mindsets. You do not, I mean, talk about you embodied by what you actually do, which is you do it yourself, problem solving, solution oriented videos and content as a business, which you've very successfully grown and monetized. But that's who you are as a human being. Like when you see an issue or an obstacle, your brain, and maybe it's partially your lawyer training, but you absolutely come at it like, here are the 5 ways we could solve for this. Let's prioritize them. Nothing is not achievable. This is all easy. We can make it happen. And I think you were probably born that way. I think maybe your parents.
Can I tell you where I think it comes from?
Where? I'm so curious.
First of all, thank you for the compliment, but it doesn't come from being a lawyer. It comes from being dyslexic. I am fully dyslexic. I cannot spell a word. But as a kid, I wasn't diagnosed. So I had to come up with creative solutions for people not to think I'm stupid. I used to hold up empty notebooks and pretend I'm reading homework when they didn't exist. And I did it for so many years that it trained, I really believe it's my biggest gift. It trained my brain to find creative solutions for problems because I just couldn't do them the way everybody else did it. And I feel like my life is, I constantly see problems I can solve. The only problem is time. And I have to decide which problems not to solve.
Right.
But it's, I really, and I say it a lot to kids with dyslexia. If you don't ask for discounts for your handicap, in a way that was mine, and you try and work with it, embrace your uniqueness in that sense, you'll find that you have a super creative mind. And I didn't get any discounts because I was only diagnosed when I was in 11th grade. But I will tell you, like, I went to a French speaking school. If you can't spell, French is the worst thing that can happen to you in your life.
Right.
And it's like, because no word is spelled the way it sounds. And I had my finals. So I gave up on French. I was on a D like throughout the years. And I said, well, I'm not going to graduate with a D. I got to figure out a solution here. I'm not going to graduate with a D. And I memorized by heart 10 different essays. And there were only 10 essays I could communicate. There was nothing else. I could not tell you colors, days of the week, nothing other than 10 essays. And when I came to the test, people before me said the teacher took out a Chagall book and asked them to describe a picture. I could not describe a Chagall book to save my life. So I had to think fast. I walked in the test. I yawned in the tester's face. And when she asks, "Pourquoi tu es fatigué?" which means why you're tired, I said, well, yesterday I went on this trip with my best friend and blah, 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 blah. I ended up with an A. the reason I give you this story is because only years later, when I started doing media training for interviews, did I learn that this is a well-known technique. It's called bridging. It doesn't matter what question you're asked, you answer what you came to say. I trained on it at 11th grade. So, and since then, I'm never afraid, even when I go on television for interviews that are maybe tough, and people ask me if I'm nervous, I'm never nervous because I know what I'm going to say. And that comes from, I think, accepting your weaknesses, looking them in the eye, embracing them, and seeing their advantages, which I think also goes into all that we think as women, that we can't because we have kids, we can't because we're being discriminated, we can't. I know I've probably been discriminated as a woman many times. I just can't tell you about one of them because I've always taken the approach that it doesn't matter. It's my responsibility. Nobody owes me anything. So it's my responsibility to fix this. And recently, one of my kids came to me and said, I think I've been discriminated at school. And I said, you might have been. It's probably true. But I'd like you to take a pen and paper and write down for yourself 2 other reasons why what happened to you could have happened to you. And only think of the possibility that maybe it didn't happen because you were discriminated. And then I'd like you to address it. And if you still think you were discriminated, then we should fight for it. But I just want you to take the approach that maybe there's another option. And that's it.
It's seeing things differently, right? It's making the choice to see it from a different perspective and have a different point of view. And so
I think it's owning it.
And owning it, right? Instead of it being a victim, it's like, how do I shift this circumstance and make this work for me? And I didn't realize being dyslexic, you're right. You have to bridge, right? You have to constantly bob and weave because if you haven't been diagnosed and you can't read it and you can't spell it, how do you survive in school?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to find a creative way.
You've got to find a creative way. So for any women out there listening who are thinking about, they're passionate, they want to be an entrepreneur, they have a day job, they're thinking about leaving or starting something. Do you have any advice? Do you have any guidance? Something that you would say to them? Listen, do this, don't do this. Sharon Rechter?
I think different advice in different stages of life, but I think the worst thing to do is live your life with regrets. So I think look your fears in the eye, write them down, understand the prices you're going to pay, because you are going to pay prices. Make sure you're willing to pay those prices, and then go for it. Because you might fail, but I enjoy data and having the data to know I tried and I failed, to me, is better than what if.
So true. I love it. You are an epitome of incredibleness, if that's even a word.
And I have to say, because you were the one interviewing me, but I admire you so much.
Oh,
you're one of the people that I look at and I'm completely inspired by what you have done and how you have done it and the mother that you are and the inspiration that you are to women, but also to entrepreneurs in general. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've seen how men at YPO looking at you and go, kick ass. And I think, you're not just a model woman entrepreneur. You're just a model entrepreneur.
Thank you.
And I am just always grateful for our conversations and for your ability to see people. Mm-hmm. And I've had the experience to enjoy that. And I'm also grateful that you're doing this, because a lot of people out there will get to enjoy your experience, your wisdom. And thank you for having me as your guest.
And my hope is just to be inspired to break through those concerns about what if I can't do it? What if I don't have enough money? What if I don't have enough time? What if I, want to be a mom? How do I, we all have talk tracks of things that make it seem difficult, and it's just one day at a time, right?
One day at a time. Nobody's an overnight success. They're all liars. And you just have to plan it and acknowledge the price that you're going to pay. There is a price. I get it. And decide if it's worth it. But yes, most people, 99% of the people, didn't have enough money or enough time when they started what they were doing.
Ever. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah, but everybody thinks everybody else had it easier than them.
I know. Well, after everything's done and said, it feels like, oh, it wasn't so hard, but it was. It was hard.
Oh, no, it was hard. It was
hard. It takes a lot.
It was hard. You get no gifts from no one.
No.
But what an achievement once you're able to say, I built this. And I think there's nothing like that feeling in the world.
Well, I cannot wait to watch First Media just continue to dominate and become a global empire, because you have built something pretty remarkable. So congratulations.
Thank you for tuning in to From Potential to Powerhouse, Success Secrets from Female Leaders with your host, Tracy Holland.